Welcome to the Engineering Success Podcast. On today's episode, we are looking at what it takes to engineer at scale in real money gaming. Stay tuned.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Engineering Success Podcast. I'm Himanshu, your host, and today we are here for an amazing podcast with Pranab. Thank you so much for taking the time and talking to us. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you, Himanshu. Thanks for having me on the show. And hello, everybody. Yes, doing well, Himanshu. How are you doing?
Doing good too. I'm very excited, super excited to talk to you.
Like,
Before we get into our discussion, Pranab, for our people, could you share a little bit about your background? What led you into engineering, and then how did your journey with Junglee Games happen?
I'm part of the engineering team in Junglee Games. Have been here for over 2.5 years now. Thoroughly enjoying my experience. In Junglee Games, we get to align the technology strategy and the business strategy, which is a unique combination. It's a delight to be part of. We also get to balance what is our immediate priority versus what is our long-term future bets that we also need to take care of. The so-called, excuse me, quadrant one and quadrant two of the Eisenhower matrix, the urgent and important versus the urgent but not yet important. To get to balance those two, it's a different experience, learning experience altogether. I did my engineering from Assam Engineering College in computer science and engineering.
Mhm.
Came to Bangalore post graduation looking for jobs. Campus interviews were not that very common thing during our days in our college. There were few companies though who visited our college. I couldn't crack through any. So came to Bangalore, got through an internship program in a startup, was there for about a couple of months. Then I got through the off-campus hiring drive in TCS. That's where my actual journey began.
Mhm.
Prior to joining Junglee Games, I was primarily in the e-commerce domain for most of my majority of my career. And in Junglee Games, it's my first exposure to real money gaming. As I already mentioned, thoroughly enjoying it. The kind of scale that we get to see, it's an engineer's delight, a paradise,
Mhm.
amazing stuff.
Thank you so much, Pranav, for that insight into your career. So you spoke about a couple of things that at Junglee Games, you are able to witness the business side of things, marry business with technology, kind of thing you're seeing. And you also spoke about that this place is an engineer's delight. So I want to talk about these two aspects. What do you mean when when you said that you're able to interact with the business and engineering components? And what is this engineer's delight that you're talking about?
Sure. Yeah, I can share my perspective, and
Mhm.
I'm confident that many of the engineers will connect with it because we all are looking for that high scale. So, I've spent many years in e-commerce, and that's where we annually have one Black Friday, one big billion day. In the real money gaming industry, to take one example, during an IPL season, which is typically 55, 65, or 70 matches long,
Mhm.
we get to see our Black Friday every day, 70 days in a stretch. Uh, and the kind of traffic pattern that we get to see. One is the scale. We are operating at very high scale. So scale has its own engineering challenges and opportunities, interesting stuff to work on. But one more important thing is that we get to see a sudden spike in traffic in maybe a few milliseconds, 3x, 4x, 5x. So to design a system for scale and to design a system for scale and stability, catering to the sudden spike in traffic, it has its own
Mm.
learning experience. That's the engineer's delight, the paradise that I was referring to. And this is very common in the gaming industry in particular.
Mm.
And we are very specific about our user experience, how our users are feeling when they are coming to the app or the product or the game. are they enjoying? If they are not, we instantly need to understand what are those one or two flows or components which are maybe mm, taking a hit in their experience, and we need to quickly learn from it and then adapt to it. The other aspect would be the users are coming to these gaming apps for fun, for entertainment. There are lots of other entertainment avenues available. So we need to make sure that we give them the best experience, which is
Hmm.
worth their time and attention.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your role and responsibilities, and what is the size of team that you're managing?
Sure. I get to take care of three teams in Junglee Games, three engineering teams. One of them is How's It, which is the daily fantasy sports app. That's where we get to see the IPL
Yeah.
track and the 70 days of Black Fridays at a stretch. The second team is what we call specialized subsystems team, meaning it's a group of experts who are focusing on specific business domains as the subject matter experts. The third team is another team of experts who specialize on in the transactions domain specifically. And these two teams, they are catering to all the different games in Zangli games, Rummy, poker, house it, carom, ludo. Yeah. And total strength of the team is not of 50, the
Hmm.
three together. Yeah, that's
So, did you have a background of gaming? Were you ever into any sort of gaming before coming and joining Junglee Games?
we all played our had fun with our games, isn't it? Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
The game that I used to love the most personally, oh, excuse me, um, was EA Sports FIFA.
Yeah.
NFS would be the second one.
Yeah.
Counter-Strike, the strategy games.
Oh, I remember like with in college and in school time, like me and my friends coming together, everybody on Counter Strike, and then trying to figure out ways. Okay, we need headphones. How to communicate? What to do?
Yeah, those were the fast-paced ones, and the strategy games like Age of Empire, Rise of Nations, where
Hmm.
you take time, think through, build things, and then concur.
Do you still play?
I do, yes.
Uh,
I Though I don't get the controller very often these days. My daughters take it.
yeah. So these days, if you see, there is a whole trend, and I think the same applies in your industry as well, that we are seeing leaner teams taking up way more than they could do maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago. The same set of responsibilities or even more, but lesser number of people.
Yeah.
So with teams becoming leaner, as a leader, what are the things that you take care of, or how do you approach your team's productivity, and you ensure that the team stays right on track, they're not burnt out? What are some of the things that you have learned and that you do to solve this?
We have, over time, I have
Hmm.
come to realize that there are three foundational aspects of a team. Number one would be trust. We need to trust, we need to be able to trust our team members with all aspects. Number two would be to make sure that everyone on the team, they are enjoying their work. And number three, to make sure that I, as an individual, I am contributing at the peak of my competency. What I mean by that is I may have joined the team very recently, and currently I'm capable of operating at 4.2 out of 5. And another team member may be capable of operating at 4.5 out of 5. There is no comparison. What I mean is that we need to operate at the peak of our competency is if I am capable of operating at 4.3, 4.4 at any given point in time, say 4.4,
Mhm.
I should not stop at 4.2 myself. I should be contributing at a peak of my competency. And then we need to enable the team members to be able to up their game to be at 4.5, 4.6, 4.8, maybe over time. As long as these three fundamentals are there, rest of the things fall in line well.
Mhm.
You also mentioned about leaner teams taking more responsibility. Yeah, that's a thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Irrespective of the size as such, the more collaborative the team is, the more um, camaraderie there is among the team members, the magic happens. And one responsibility on our shoulders as the leaders would be to make sure that the team members they understand the business context. If we are working on a feature or a bug, we need to understand what impact it has on our users. How is it impacting the user experience? How is it impacting our business metrics? This is where we need to play the bridge between the business realm and the technology realm, translate the business KPIs into relatable technology metrics such as it may be scalability, it may be stability, it may be the number of concurrent users, it may be the spike in traffic, it may be timelines, it may be priorities. As long as we have that visibility and the team members know the goal that we are approaching, that we are trying to reach, work happens
Mhm.
automatically. And particularly in our setup, what we ensure that the team members have the full liberty to try, experiment. If we fail, we fail. But let's try 10 things so that at least one or two are successful and make a difference. When they enjoy their work, I don't think anybody holds
Mm.
back.
Yeah. Pranab, but you spoke about a very important aspect, which has also been my focus, uh, uh, is visibility. I mean, it's an ongoing area of discussion within the organization, and where, I mean, with other engineering leaders as I speak, that uh, visibility has been a crucial, uh, is an important aspect. It's an important asset for an engineering leader. Visibility into how the team is functioning, how is each individual performing, what are the challenges in the processes and people. But when you are at a position like this, at a senior level, the gap between you and a a new developer, or a new dev is too much. The hierarchy is such that it prevents you to get a direct visibility on what's happening everywhere. How do you look at it? How do you solve this problem of visibility for yourself? And what does it mean for you? When you think about visibility, what is your internal or your functional definition of visibility?
One simple definition of would be that I know what I am working on and I know why I am working on it.
Hmm.
What is the impact that it will create in our business growth, in our users' experience? That's very important. You also touched upon when the team grows, how do we make sure that the visibility is translated or propagated properly? I'll take a step back before I answer this. Uh, we, as an engineering team in Junglee Games, we open it to everybody equally to grab as much opportunity as anybody wants and can
Hmm.
take. We do not go by designations. It's a very flat structure in that regard.
Hmm.
One very common analogy that we often use in our team meetings, wider team meetings, is we can be like a sponge in a bathtub. The tub is filled. It depends upon how big a sponge we individually are to grab as much opportunity as we can or want to. It's so often repeated in our teams is that some of the team members listening to this show, watching this show, they will relate to it and they probably were uh, predicting what I was going to say next. So, with that said, we also believe in the Conway's laws, one specific being the architecture of the software solutions or the designs that we produce will mimic the structure that we have in the team. That is very profound, and
Yeah.
it proven in the industry like, throughout the evolution of software engineering. So we also pay closer attention to that so that there is proper structure so that every individual on the team, they get the guidance, the required guidance to excel as an individual, to outperform themselves individually, and to be aligned in the same direction. We have multiple pods and our teams working in different sets of responsibilities. So we need to make sure that all of us are running towards the same goal in the same direction. For example, in the three teams that I get to take care of, there are four leaders. Three of them, they are focusing on the deliverables of each of these units. And there is one leader who is focusing on making sure that our overarching architecture is on track. And we have regular one-on-ones. For example, I will have weekly one-on-ones with my direct reports, and they will have weekly one-on-ones with their direct reports. I will have either a bi-weekly or maybe a monthly with the skip levels so that we keep discussing the importance and the significance of the work that we are producing. All the individual leaders, they are having regular team meetings, and then monthly we have a wider team meeting. Earlier we used to call it a town hall, but these days we call it a team meeting to give it a more informal setup so
Mm-hmm.
that members can speak up and speak out, share their perspectives. It may be a concern, it may be a perception, but even if it's a perception, a team member's perception is our reality as a leader. We need to address it. If it's a perception, we need to share the right visibility, right information so that the perception transforms into a perspective and which should be aligned with our goal. So these are few steps that are rituals
Mm-hmm.
that we follow to make sure that all of us are marching towards the same goal. And visibility is the key to do that, is what our experience tells us.
And how often do you have these team meetings and town halls? What is a good number of meetings to have?
That would be a very subjective question. It
Mm-hmm.
will depend it will vary from context to context.
But can you give a framework on how can somebody think about this? And I also give you more context on these questions. One of the reasons why we are doing this podcast is if you look around, as teams are becoming leaner, we are also seeing many first timers who are taking on engineering leadership roles. Something as common as a 21, 22, 23-year old who just did a startup and is suddenly now finds himself in a CTO role.
Yeah.
Person with zero experience now is functioning as a CTO. And if you look at the trajectory of these startups, it's the same story. Young bunch of young people coming together. Now, one of them becomes a director, then one of them graduates to a VP, one of them graduates to an engineering manager. So when we're coming from that background, you were never really exposed to the fundamentals of managing the team. So if you could just share some insights for them on how can they approach, how often should they have those team meetings for visibility, as you said, like how to decide like what is a good number or what should you even be doing and talking in those meetings?
Sure. So I'll have a two-part answer to this question. First, addressing the first part, excuse me, the engineering leadership aspect, and then we'll come to the second part about the frequency of these meetings as such. So as far as engineering leadership is concerned, I believe that there are three things in particular which do not change whether we are in an individual contributor role or an engineering leadership role. They would be being deep into the technology, thoroughly understanding it, and keeping pace with it. Second, would be, irrespective of whether I'm an individual contributor or an engineering leader, the amount of ownership and accountability that we need to take doesn't change. The third would be that irrespective of the role again, we all need to have leadership traits to excel in our paths. So these three things are common, irrespective of the career path. What, in my experience, why I enjoying my role as an engineering leader would be number one, to get to learn, practice, and simplify the strategy. Number two, to play the bridge between the business and the technology realms, to translate the words from one language to the other. Both these worlds use very different languages, by the way. And third would be to be able to help the team realize the importance and or the impact that they are creating and help them contribute in a more meaningful way to the business growth. So these are, in my experience, few things that I enjoy doing, which are working well. So coming to the part where you mentioned when we are suddenly into this new career path as an engineering leader, maybe various the different designations, how do we handle that? We need to figure out what is our driver. Do I want to focus on the first set of things that we discussed earlier, like being deep into technology, taking the ownership and accountability, and making sure that we have our own leadership traits? If those three things are the focus, then an individual contributor role may be more better suited for us, because that specifically doesn't mean that we have to switch to the management role. If the latter sort of things, again, not necessarily only those three things that we discussed, like strategy and all these aspects, but if we have some areas of engineering leadership where we think that we will be able to make a greater contribution as an engineering leader, that makes more sense to pursue that career path. Both are equally important and
Mhm.
equally meaningful roles, as long as we enjoy them individually and personally. So first step would be to evaluate. And the reason I can say this confidently, because I have been there, done that, made my mistakes, learned from
Yeah.
my failures. So coming to the second part about creating the visibility or making sure that our team members are growing and then feeling engaged and connected, how frequent should our meetings with them be? At least a weekly one-on-one with the DRs is the formula that has been working well for me so far. I'm open to feedback and changing it in the future. That's part of learning and growth. But so far, 1 week is what is working well. And then either a bi-weekly or a monthly connect with the skip levels, and a monthly connect with the three teams, the wider teams, to make sure that every function is aware of what the other function is doing. And that's where all of us, we get to realize how our work is connected, how we are driving towards the same target. These are the frequencies that is working well for me.
Mhm.
In the specific context of an individual, we will have to
Evaluate.
at least try out something, figure out if it's working, and
Yeah.
adjust accordingly.
It's a process that you'll have to go through and find your own pace.
Yes.
Pranav, there's this one theme which is occurring very often in our conversation is business and engineering alignment.
Yeah.
You spoke about translating business goals into engineering requirements. So in the last few years, this is my thesis as of now, that I feel engineering leaders, as you go up, you become more of a business leader with engineering responsibility. I mean, you have an equal say in how, if not less, but equal say in how the future of the future of the company, the future of the product that you're working on. So in the last few years and in your personal experience, Has the expectation from an engineering leader, the expectation of the management, I mean, the seniors, has it changed in any way?
Let me take a stab at that. Disclaimer first, my views might be biased, and I'll share why my views will be biased. I have tried a couple of times starting up with a couple of ideas, not successful, failed, made mistakes, of course, learned from it, and I really savor those. I will not trade those failures for anything, even though they failed. Among many mistakes that we made, one prominent one was that I personally did not have the knowledge what business is, how to operate, how to run, what matters to the business. We were focusing on building the technology solution, hoping that users would like or to solve some of their problems.
Yeah.
Learning from this experience, I signed up for business course in IIM Ahmedabad. Third thing that happened to me almost at the same time, I got into Junglee, fortunately. And here we have a very open culture. I have briefly mentioned about it earlier, where the leaders from all different functions, we come and join the same table. We discuss the business opportunities, business challenges, the metrics, the KPIs, everything together. We go deeper into the data together. So that builds a connect with what's going on the business side. Because of these personal experiences, my view is that we cannot actually say that, hey, I'm an engineering leader. I don't know or I don't care what's going on in the business. At the same time, I appreciate and acknowledge that there is another school of thought where we would say that I'm an engineering leader. I need to focus on core engineering problems and challenges. Let the business leaders focus on their core strengths and things will align well. I respect that thought as well. And hence I say that my views will be biased towards the first because of my personal experiences. But yes, over time, there has been a shift in mindset where more and more engineering leaders seem to be realizing that, hey, we need to know what the business is, where we are heading. We need to know if there is a drop in the business metric or the KPI or the funnel. We need to be able to relate it with an engineering, say, a module or a method in the code base. To be able to do that, we need to know what is dropping, and then we need to be able to translate these two worlds and then merge them into one. That's where having that business connect and insight, hopefully built over time, is very important in my view.
As we already discussed, that the trend is towards a lean team. That
Yeah.
means it also means that the expectation out of you is now much more. I mean, it's not just defined or limited to what was maybe given in your JD. You do have to go beyond that uh, to
Yeah.
be able to deliver for your team. In my experience, what startup has taught me is that everything in your company is your responsibility.
Yes.
Everything. You may not have the necessary knowledge or information to solve a particular problem, but that does not mean that you need to shut your eye towards it.
Yes, none of us were born engineers. We learned engineering, we learned coding.
Yeah.
All it needed was that focus that, yes, I
Hmm.
want to learn it, I want to master this skill set. So far, we may not have needed, for various reasons, to focus on the business aspects. But if there is an opportunity or there is a need now, and particularly when you are running a lean team or maybe a startup or a venture of your own, you definitely need to focus on everything or at least pay attention to everything. So that's where it's all about finding the time to learn the basics and connect the dots.
Mm.
As and when we learn more and more areas, we will be better equipped to connect the dots. I may even go to the extreme to say that if we are confining ourselves to only one specific predefined set of roles and responsibilities, we may not be able to connect the dots.
Mm.
It is very important. And yes, as organizations are growing towards more and more leaner teams, of course, that is being powered by the advent in technology
Mm.
like Gen AI and all. So many productivity hacks are now readily available to us. That has allowed for us to make sure that with the same team size, we are able to
Mm.
create more impact. So with all these things happening, we need to be conscious about the fact that there are these other areas where we need to learn and understand. Maybe not depth. The t-shirt size, as we typically call it, is that in one area I'll have my depth, and I'll at least have um some level of breadth
Mm.
to as many areas as I can cover my basics in.
So
And
how
that
are you leveraging Gen AI? How are you leveraging tech to help you as an engineering leader manage better?
few immediate changes that AI has brought definitely are the productivity tools. We are now leveraging the code generation LLMs very heavily. Almost all the companies are doing that. The chatbots, they are much more advanced now. Some of them are powered by, again, LLMs. Other areas would be to take the example from the design world. Earlier, a design which used to be taking probably maybe 4 hours, 5 hours of an individual's time, the likes of Midjourney will make things much faster, quicker, and easier these days. So these are a few areas where most of the companies have started adopting, and many of them are pretty much ahead into this journey. These are the immediate benefits. At the
Mm.
same time, also connecting this question to the earlier one, where we need to have the overall breadth into the business side as well. The productivity hacks that we are currently leveraging Gen AI for in particular, they are going to help us create value. Certainly, we are producing more impactful work in the same amount of time with the same team size and capacity. That definitely helps the business. But one thing that we need to ask ourselves is it also going to create or capture the value in the long run? Because all the companies are leveraging these technologies. So all of us will be at the same podium
Yeah.
over a certain amount of time. So there isn't going to be any differentiation as such that we can leverage from these level zero Gen AI adoption as we typically know these days.
Mm.
So where we need to pay focus on is we are the engineering functions. So we know technology, we know Gen AI, how it works. We also need to figure out where can we utilize Gen AI in the core product flows and find a better fit in the business strategy itself so that captures the value in the long run,
Mm.
and that will create a differentiation more than any function in an organization today. I believe we as engineering functions are best placed to come up with these ideas to so we need to keep looking for it and then find those opportunities, evaluate our ideas with the data set, and make sure that it's worth trying. And if it's worth trying, let's give it a shot. If we share those perspectives, all our peers in the other functions, they will also realize how we need to adjust so that there is a fit in our strategy. And only when there is a fit, there can be a differentiation. Otherwise, it will only be a short-term value creation, not longer
Yeah.
term. While doing it, though, there will be two things that we need to keep in mind. Number one, the intellectual humility. We need to understand the other side of the story. If somebody is saying that, hey, no, this is not something that we should do, we should be humble enough to listen to those perspectives, see how much of it makes sense, what feedback can we take, and maybe tune our ideas. The second thing would be that any value capturing activity will take time. To find a fit in the strategy, it needs deeper thinking. So it takes time. So being patient will be the second key to it.
I think you've put it really well that leveraging these technology may not help you, may not directly impact you being ahead of a lot of other competitors. But if you don't do it, there is a high chance you might be left behind.
Yes, we can't ignore the short-term value creation either. Like you said, if we don't adopt the productivity gains from Gen AI today, we will be doing things still the old way, which is not a way of saying that we are becoming zombies. We do not want to be that org or the team either. So it is very level zero Gen AI adoption is very important. At the same time, for us as the leaders, we need to think through what can we do to make longer term impact.
Mhm. Pranav, so I've had the fortune of speaking to close to 200 plus engineering leaders in the last few months of my journey while I was exploring for this podcast, on the podcast, outside the podcast. What I've seen is that for different organizations, they have different priorities set in terms of velocity, quality, throughput. When I look at gaming industry, I can't stop thinking about the fact that because you're such an because it's an instant gratification driven industry, you guys need to be at your toes when it comes to quality, of course, but velocity is equally important. How do you find a balance between all of this? I'm pretty sure there are times when you have to choose between doing things at a higher velocity or maintaining quality of it. Have you ever been in such a situation? And if yes, then what has been your approach?
That's actually spot on. We need to do things fast, and at the same time, we need to maintain quality. Quality, as in, I'm covering all angles of it, like performance, scalability, making sure that the features are what they were intended to be, etc. So finding the sweet balance is always a challenge as well as an opportunity, something that needs our constant attention. And we need to look for items. For example, if there is one thing that we are working on, the ultimate scope or the shape and form of that idea may be something huge. Can we break it down to smaller units which are individually capable of giving us some feedback, experiments, as we call it, the A/B test, etc. So one big requirement, we break it down into maybe 5 chunks of work and then test out the first chunk based on the learning from the experiments run on this first chunk. We course correct and then build on top of it for the second chunk and then do the third, fourth, fifth, and so on and so forth. This is till date has been the best formula for us to crack the balance between speed versus quality. And we actually do not look at it as a speed versus quality thing. We rather the motto that we follow is speed and quality. Figure out how we can bring that balance. And there is always the term that we very commonly use, minimum viable product. Uh, the Lean Startup, the book by Um,
Hmm.
Eric, if I am recalling the author's name correctly, they talk about this concept alone and how can we quickly try things out and gather the feedback from our users and the market and adopt and do things better. While it helps in understanding the market feedback, it also inherently helps us in maintaining the balance between speed and quality.
Yeah. So, for anybody, for people who are watching this and are interested in venturing into gaming, like engineers who are watching this, do you have anything to share to them, say to them, like, this is something that you should know, or this is what you're signing up for? Any word of caution or any advice for them?
We discussed about how engineering in gaming is an engineer's paradise.
Yeah.
Yeah, the word of caution, if you, as you said, would be that beware that you may like this engineering stuff too much. It is very interesting to be able to work at this level of scalability, linearity, concurrency, problem statements.
Mhm.
Also making sure that we leverage the best of technology so that we can keep upping our experience levels to the next level all the time. Opportunity, yes, it's a growing industry in India. The government, like it was happening in e-commerce maybe a decade and a half, 2 decades back, the government is paying close attention to how we can nurture this industry. Regulations are part of it so that we have the right measures and metrics in place so that the industry grows well. And yeah, there is lots of opportunities, not only in Junglee Games, across the gaming industry.
Yeah.
And in Junglee Games in particular, one plug here, maybe, we are, of course, hiring, we are growing constantly. So if anybody is interested, please reach out. We would be hoping to have a conversation and explore the opportunity together.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure many people would be excited. Pranab, on parting note, uh, you started your career with TCS, and now you're functioning in a high velocity, high quality environment in an engineering lead position. You've seen the journey, you've seen the transitions. Do you have any word of advice for the aspiring engineering leaders or people who are already into leadership positions? What are some of the things that they could do? What are some of the practices that they could incorporate?
I can share my
Yes.
experience, my learnings. Uh, Hopefully, it will mean something to the listeners, the people who are watching the show. One is to take good care of the team and support them with all the resources that they may need to do their work effectively, to enjoy their work. Second would be to be authentic. We need to be absolutely certain in our own mind that, yes, this is something that I'm enjoying, I want to do. There is always an opportunity if we feel at any given point in time that, hey, I have done engineering leadership for some time. I also want to try the individual contributor role once again. Absolutely open. So it's important for us to know that we are enjoying what we are doing. Only then we will be able to uh, be authentic and make an impact and make some difference. And stay humble, particularly in the engineering roles.
Mhm.
One is that the breakneck speed at which technology is advancing, there is this concept called accelerating change, if I'm recollecting the
Yes.
phrase correctly. What it says is roughly that a person aged 60 will experience a decade's worth of change in 11 days. And it's happening in technology. That's the speed at which technology is actually advancing. So we need to keep pace with it. We need to make sure that we understand our own domain thoroughly. And then we also have the breadth across the functions so that we can translate it and then relate with the business opportunities, the real world challenges, and can make a greater impact to the society.
Uh, very happy to talk to you here. And I do hope that I get to meet you in person and take this conversation ahead. I know that in a 45 minutes format, you can't really ask all the questions. There are so many things that I had on my mind I wanted to ask, but I do hope that we get this opportunity soon and we sit for one more round of conversation and discuss more.
I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, Man. So thank you so much for extending the opportunity. Look forward to it. And to all the listeners, thank you so much for listening, for watching the show. Please share your feedback. I would love to hear which part of the conversation, if you do not agree or you are
Yeah.
not aligned to any part of the conversation, I would be happy to have the conversation, understand the perspective, and upscale my learning and understanding. That would be a humble request. Thank you so much, Iman.
Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned for more.